good day, everyone, and welcome to this very interesting event, which is about a book release and discussion on globalization and economic justice, from terrorism to global peace. And of course, it's a subject that's I think it's very timely and crucial to build global peace, but also global prosperity, prosperity that is shared by everyone. At the United Nations, we talk about the 2030 agenda, which is really about leaving no one behind. So welcome everyone. I'd like to say that I am, first I should introduce myself. I'm Yamina Jakta. I am a former UN staff, actually. I used to be the former director of the UN Habitat New York office. And I met, I think, some of you in that capacity. I'm an advisor of the GRACE initiative. And I would like, in this regard, to acknowledge Ms. Yvonne Buduko, who is the founder of the GRACE initiative. So I would like to welcome you all. And as you will see from the program, there are a number of eminent personalities and representatives here. I won't go through the list because I'm sure the moderator will be introducing every one of you. And I think that there is an interesting panel, and without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Kuriakose. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you all, and I would like to formally welcome all the distinguished guests here who have come here to attend this book launch from the many regions of the earth, from the Middle East, India, Canada, and from the different areas of the United States. The first event of today's book launch is the release of the book, Globalization and Economic Justice, from Terrorism to Global Peace. I would like to ask Mr. Tomasoli Massimo, the permanent observer of IDEA to the United Nations, to release the book. Mr. Kashif Sheikh will give the book to Mr. Tomasoli Massimo.
Please come. Please look to the
Thank you for your kind words of introduction, Chris, and thank you for your opening remarks, Yamina. And welcome to everybody. We at International IDEA value a lot the knowledge production and the exchange of knowledge in a way that is useful and used by policymakers, especially in the UN. So that is the main reason why I wanted to be part of this event with good friends, including George Matthew, whom we have been working together with for a long time in the context of the community of democracies, and especially in terms of fostering democratic institutions at the grassroots level. And also it has been a great pleasure to collaborate also with Dr. Kuriakose, who is the editor of this book and the main author, and who will say a few words, of course, introducing the analysis. Let me just say what is my view about this book. And we at IDEA have just published and launched a report, which is the first in a series. We'll have this report every second year, and it's called The Global State of Democracy. The first volume this year focuses on the issue of resilience. Is democracy resilient? And we had last week a launch here in New York. We had a series of launches, 16 launches around the world, and we'll continue to share our views on this important topic. What is the resilience of democracy? How democratic institutions are resilient? And I think that if you look at that report, you can find that some of the key challenges and the key themes addressed in our analysis actually resonate with the analysis in this book. The chapters in this book show that there is a network of scholars and practitioners from different areas, all trying to look at the impact of globalization and how concerns about redistribution and economic justice may actually contribute to sustainable development. Yamina Diatta, in her introductory remarks, referred to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and there the agenda is in fact trying to address also issues of inequality, issues of peace, justice and accountable institutions, issues of gender inequality, in addition to the many other topics that are addressed by the various sustainable development goals. And I think that this volume speaks to that. When you look at the contributions that analyze non-violence and how these can contribute to dialogue and coexistence, I think that this is a very powerful analysis of the importance of processes alongside the importance of setting the objectives and defining perhaps a roadmap in order to achieve them. So I'm welcoming all of you at this event, confirming our interest in the analysis, hoping that this analysis will be useful for policy makers, and continuing to collaborate with the institutions that have been behind this launch and that are very good partners for international ideas work, especially when it comes to the role of civil society and the role of think tanks in advancing the agenda of democracy worldwide. Thank you very much.
My dear friend Massimo, other Kuriakose, distinguished participants, I consider it an honor to be with you for the release of this book and the book discussion. First of all, let me congratulate Professor Kuriakose for taking such an initiative to bring out a volume like this. About 14 contributors?
Yeah.
14 contributors from different parts of the world. Put them together and focus on an issue which is highly relevant today. You know, the various areas of concern, schools, school children, family economy to global economy, climate change, medicine and medical issues, non-violent experiments, Quran and Islamic approach to peaceful coexistence, employment issues, eradication of child poverty, oil industry, globalization, peace employment, income generation, heroes of North America for peace, neoliberalism. What a widespread, what a canvas is covered. That is where we have to give our great appreciation to the editor. And let us give a big hand to what I wanted to say is that this is a very serious issue, and we are all concerned about it. And out of this terrorism and all these give birth, and where are we going to the issue of peace? The issue is, in the world today, 1% is dominating 99%. With the billionaires or billionaires and all these things. The second issue I wanted to just highlight for our thinking is why all this injustice is happening is defense expenditure. This is a very important issue we have to consider. I'm sure this kind of intellectual community, a thought process can start. In this book, there is a quote: "As long as there is poverty in the world, I can never be rich. Even if I have $1 billion, I cannot be rich if there is poverty in the world. As long as diseases are rampant and millions of people in this world cannot expect to live more than 28 or 30 years, I can never be totally healthy. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the way our world is made. No individual or nation can stand out boasting of being independent. We are interdependent." Are we like that? Are we going for a world like that? Can we create a new chapter? This is the question. The time has come when dictatorship of the capitalist and greedy cannot go as it is. We should stop it. And we can do that if our thinking, our research, our knowledge base we are creating as academics and all these groups, we have to integrate this research in action. So I would like to say we must commit ourselves, and based on this wonderful work done, let us say, yes, we can. All our intellectual community lead to action-oriented tomorrow. From today, tomorrow. We should not think of only today. We should think of tomorrow. Our future generations and generations. Let us all commit to that. And once again, I thank Kuriakose, my dear friend Massimo, and Yamina for your contribution, and all the dear friends who are here. Several of my dear friends are here. I am very happy to be here, and thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Before I enter to the details of the project, I would like to thank all contributors who wrote different articles on this volume. Your hard work made this volume an excellent work. I would also like to thank Ms. Yamina Dijekta, advisor to GRACE Initiative, and Dr. George Matthew, chairman of the Institute of Social Sciences, New Delhi. There are two focuses on these projects. First one is economic development and justice, and second is peace and non-violence in the context of violence and terrorism. Mahatma Gandhi is considered as the champion of peace and non-violence in modern political history. Gandhi was indebted to Leo Tolstoy's writings, especially his book, Kingdom of God is Within You. In addition, Gandhi was very much influenced by the teachings of Jesus Sermon on the Mount. The impact of globalization is very high on global people in different ways. Further, the global people live under the threat of violence and terrorism. In such a context, peace and coexistence is a challenge to all human beings. This fact is spelled out in Professor Takim's article in this book. Professor Takim says the Quranic view of peace and coexistence is interwoven with its view of a universal moral discourse that unites all human beings. The Quran also views human diversity as a basis for understanding and peaceful coexistence. Fundamental to the Quranic conception of peaceful coexistence is the view that human beings are united under one God. What are the supporting factors as well as destructive factors for development? This is a topic globally. The people who are involved in shaping ideas are seriously concerned. How human development, individual development can happen? What should be the situations? Is it possible without a peaceful atmosphere? In a violent and terrorist dominating culture, how sustainable development can happen? I am sure the organizations like United Nations and all global organizations who are concerned about human development are seriously thinking about this. That is why Mr. Massimo encouraged me to tell more about peace and non-violence, because my chapter itself is dealing with non-violence experiments around the world. Even the non-violence experiment started in this continent along with the immigrants, the British Puritans. That is the introduction itself. Here also another international movement is International Fellowship of Reconciliation. That was started after the First World War in England. Many followers of FOR or Fellowship of Reconciliation organized their movements in different parts of the world. One was even in South India. 3 people who formed a fellowship in the leadership of Ara Keita. He started a fellowship in Kodaikanal Ashram, South India, and Reverend K.K. Chandy organized a ashram near Kottayam and fellowship hospital in Odanchitram, Madurai, Tamil Nadu, and their works are also included. And in South American experience of non-violence, Adolfo Perez Esquivel, and another non-violent fighting pacifist in Japan is Kagawa Toyohiko, and his experiments, Martin Luther King's non-violent action in the US, and assessment to the apartheid and non-violence experience in South Africa are included in this discussion. So in the modern situation, even the youngsters has to understand there is an alternative for violence. Many think there is violence can defend only by violence. But our concern, a major concern of this book is there is non-violent way of addressing violence. So in our community developments, in our urban life, in our political movements, everywhere the importance of non-violence or pacifism is emphasized in this book, because today we are in the context of violent and terrorism. The terrorism, even the first volume of this series, Religion, Terrorism and Globalization, was published after 9/11. After 9/11, this idea came, and I discussed with some friends, and this first volume, well known and very scholars in different walks of life. And then the second volume, Terrorism, Religion and Global Peace, from concept to praxis. So this is also, they are very good articles. Now the third volume published, I am very happy about it. And the next volume is, we are thinking about spirituality, technology and globalization, from terrorism to global peace. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. And with that, we'll open our panel discussion. We're very fortunate to have several distinguished panelists and speakers here with us at the launch of this book. I'll quickly go over who we have, and then I'll let them introduce themselves more thoroughly and speak about their contributions. First, we have Mr. Joe Varghese. He's a professional engineer from the oil and gas sector. Mr. Varghese, if you could just identify yourself for everyone. Next, we have Mr. Bruce Neiswander, the president of Generation Seeds. Next, we have Dr. Sergei Trostyansky, the chair of the governing board from the Institute for Studies of Eastern Christianity from Union Theological Seminary. And finally, we have Mr. Kashif Sheikh, assistant general manager from Arab Gulf Pearl. So without further ado, I will pass on the mic to Mr. Varghese.
Thank you. Distinguished guest, respected Achan, I'm happy to be here. And my name is Joe Varghese. I'm a professional engineer working for an oil major company in Canada. So I'm in the field for the last 30 years. Also, I teach project procurement and logistics in the University of Calgary as a part-time professor. So I wrote a chapter here related to oil and gas industry. So I would like to share some experience and what we have covered in the chapter, and maybe then we can keep for some discussions at the end. So as you know that oil is considered as a black commodity, and it is one of the commodity which goes through a cyclical change, this high and low roller coaster price, which you may or may not have seen the impact of the oil price. You will only see few cents moving up and down in at the gas station. But as a producer, we see a lot of impact and how it impacts our industry, our employment, and our stakeholders, and where we do the business and how it impacts the society. So that is why I took the time to describe that, how it impacts and what are the challenges and what is a responsible way to move forward, because oil industry is known, or it is considered as one of the key contributor for the green gas emission and also for the climate change, which is not proven scientifically, but that is the perception. When there is perception, a lot of people have the same perception, it becomes the reality. So currently, the oil price has gone through a cyclical change. There is 4 changes since 1988. The recent one in 2014, which is started because of the inventory situation and there is a glut in the marketplace. That has a big impact on the global economy. So there are countries which probably have seen or heard about OPEC. OPEC is a cartel where the major oil producers are together and they are controlling the market conditions. The OPEC is headed by Saudi Arabia, and there are member countries which controls 40% of the oil production. There are other major oil producing countries which headed by Russia. The key oil producers in the world is Russia, Saudi Arabia, and US, which is 40% of the total production. So
the OPEC, which traditionally controlled the price by cutting down the production level, in 2014 what happened is they did not cut back the production, which in turn the US at the same time started making more oil. So which kind of in turn created a higher oil inventory situation, and that's where the oil prices start falling down, which had a major impact on the industry, because every job in the oil industry has 10 supporting jobs, because when there is a project, there is a lot of supporting activities, including the procurements, the construction, the design, and the fabrication. It is globally that industry is managed. So I've been to Korea a few months back. There is a place called Busan. That whole town is dead because not much oil and gas projects are going on. So there is a big impact on the unemployment, and also there is a big impact on related activities, what was happening. So what was happened is this industry is very strong. It can sustain for another 30 years. There is a lot of reserve, and the three major oil reserve countries in the world is Venezuela, Canada, and also Saudi Arabia. Those three holds 40% of the oil reserve in the world. So it has enough to support for the next 30 years. But again, what is happening is the challenges. When we produce oil, the oil needs to transport through either the pipeline or the rail or road. And also there are spills, and whenever we move the oil through the containers, there are incidents where the spills and the leaks are occurring, and that has a negative impact on the industry. And also the impact of the oil industry is when we extract the oil from the earth and it is processed, and it is a hydrocarbon industry. It is one of the key contributors for the carbon dioxide, and that in turn produces a lot of green gas, and that's why the oil industry is considered as one of the key contributors for the green gas emission. And also the other challenges are, when we are developing these, there are a lot of communities and we have other stakeholders in the process. So we have to satisfy everybody. So currently what is happening in the situation is the OPEC countries and the non-OPEC countries are cooperating. They are cutting back the productions. The inventory levels are coming down. The oil price is recovered to the $50-60. So there is two price index in the international market. One is the Brent crude, which is the international price, and also the WTI that is managed in the North American market. So the prices are recovering, but that price level is not supporting any new project situation, which is again the unemployment rates are going to stay where it is.
So basically what is happening is the oil and gas industry need to consider a responsible development. You can't go and develop unlimited. So it needs to be controlled. It needs to understand the stakeholders' impact. Mainly the stakeholders are the environment. The main polluters of oil and gas is air, water, and also the land. So the disturbance to the land, the pollution to the water and air should be minimum. And also there are new technologies which can reduce the green gas emission. So we are experimenting how we can do the carbon dioxide capture. How can we reduce minimum water and air intake in terms of our production? So those how to reduce by new technology and green gas emissions. The other aspects is there is no government control oil price. Oil price is a product of market sentiments. And also it is a perception how the price should be going up and down. So there is no government level controls on oil price. A $100 oil price or $20 oil price is not good for the producers. There should be a reasonably good margin where company can do the development and support the sustainable development. That's where the government help needs for some policy and price control. Lastly, the cooperation among the OPEC countries and the non-OPEC countries are very, very important. Without the lack of cooperation and support, what happened in 2014 could repeat again. So therefore, the cooperation between OPEC and non-OPEC countries are very, very important for a sustainable development of oil and gas. There are alternate sources like the wind power, the thermal power, and solar power, the nuclear power. Those sources are considered as alternate sources to the oil and gas industry. However, those industries or those technologies are not proven commercially to any kind of challenge to the oil and gas industry at this stage. There are developments happening in the various parts of the world, but those developments are not nearly anywhere to offset the oil and gas impact of the current situation. So the current oil consumption at the world level is around 95 million barrels per day. So that with the population growing up, the industry is growing up because the major users of the
oil industry is the automobile industry, the commercial industry, the transportation and shipping industry. So these industries are continually growing. The world population is growing. I'm originally from India. So the number of cars compared to the last 15-20 years is probably 3 times or 4 times more. So the consumption is going up, and these 95 million barrels per day consumption is either maintained or it is going to be increased. Therefore, the sustainable development needs to happen at the same time. A balance between the demand and the growth and the sustainable development is very, very important. At government level, these policy changes are very, very important. The price control is very important. The oil production countries like the OPEC and non-OPEC countries needs to cooperate, and they should not be fighting each other in this situation. And it is contributing, and the major oil companies in the world have a big chunk of the capital in the world market and also in the stock price. So this is an important industry. It needs to be managed. It needs to be sustained. So the support and cooperation from all parts of the world is equally important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ravies. Next we'll go to Mr. Bruce Niswander.
I want to start by thanking you, Kuriakose, for we met at an event that I was at promoting kind of economic development initiatives with the UN, and he broached the idea of the book. And my goal for here today is this is just a starting point for the subjects in this book. And for those here who know me, I'm all about bottom line, not writing chapters in books. Thanks to your editing, it did sound like I knew what I was doing, but thanks to your editing. And so what I found as I looked around from Varick Street to NYU to all of the other places that I've traveled is there's a growing concern that the world should have, and it's much bigger than global warming. And that is the economic conditions of the middle and lower middle and poor people in the world. Those categories are growing by incredible percentages on a day-to-day basis. Perfect example, what are we going to do with the 70 million plus political refugees that are barely surviving? What are we going to do with the 400 million people in southern India? I've traveled throughout China, and contrary to what they tell the world, they've got their own 700 million of desperate people. And so I came to the conclusion that the one driving factor in all of this is the subject of a job. Everybody needs a job to survive. It's no different than the law of the jungles. If the lions don't kill, they don't eat, they don't live. If people don't have a job and they can't make money, their survival is in question. And more importantly, on the global scene, is because that situation has degraded in such a way, and I say that because I'm embarrassed to sit here in this table of multinational people and being a citizen of the United States. This country has shown how pathetically shallow it can be in a little less than 12 months, and it's an embarrassment for those of us who are here realizing that globalization is the true only solution, and that is the path we've got to pursue. But as I moved through my projects and as I taught some 1,500 international grad students, it became apparent that really there are major changes that have to occur in the world. But our target here at this table should be meaningful jobs paying a livable wage while participating in the creation of the wealth that occurs. That's a redefinition of economics from the bottom up. And I say that only because there is no way we're going to change how we economically can deal with oil. Oil is oil is oil. Politicians, corruption, they are what they are. And what I've dedicated myself to is, if you're going to have results, you've got to go to the bottom, you've got to get basic and simple, and you've got to help the poorest people in India and the people who live in the Midwestern United States, because it's that loss of hope for a better future that's resulting in the populist situation that's giving the elections where Britain decides to leave the European Union because the people couldn't find jobs. The United States, in its elections, chose to chase somebody who, for whatever reason, would promise that they could deliver jobs, even though they can't. But they would promise that, and that's the results. If you remember the whole scenario around Arab Spring, those were educated college students who knew how to leverage social media and got together and overthrew the governments of some 5 different countries. And again, not unlike Occupy Wall Street, without a solution, it begat maybe a less advantageous situation than it should have. But the bottom line for us is that we've got to figure out how to put maybe 2 billion people who are not working to work. And so if you read my chapter, I like the analogy because as a tech transfer guy, I get to look at all kinds of technology. And literally, I say all kinds of technology. We could compartmentalize a unit to drop into Puerto Rico and create a sustainable environment which would include energy, sanitation, clean water, healthcare, and do it in a unit, and it would be sustainable and compartmentalized, and those people would be out of the woods. But given that that's not the focus of the megacorp structure of the global economy, that's not being done. But as you look through this kind of massive change that's going on, the promise for a better future is incredible. But it starts with the youngest person in the most backward country by convincing them that if they gain the certain skills that they can market, that they do have a promising future in their area, wherever that may be. So if you read my piece, I focus on neighborhood economic development, not national economic development. This is a bottom-up solution. It has to be, because the people have to buy into it. Now you say, well, that's really nice, Mr. Nice Wonder, but that's a mountain so big you can't climb. Well, that's not really true. If anyone looks at the power of and the speed of social media, it takes 1 or 2 real meaningful solutions that deliver bottom line results, and the world's going to tell the rest of the world, hey, there's hope out here. So there is a way to move the solutions around the world quickly. One of the things that I look at that discourages me, and I was a college professor, so I did gain some credibility to have to be able to say this, but we focus on degrees, businesses hire on skills. So if you go to even a small business, they will not hire a Yale PhD unless they can exhibit skills that will immediately benefit that business. That's what our focus should be. We should move our education environment to lifetime skilling rather than short-term degree earning. Why? Less expensive, more focused on the bottom line, and the biggest item is it's coordinated with the rampant change that's occurring in the world today. It was discouraging to tell my students that, by the time you get done with your degree, it's going to be outdated because there's going to be new changes that will, supersede what you're doing. So as an engineer, I empathize with you. I was a chemical engineer at Procter & Gamble for a number of years. The cool thing was you had new technologies and new things that you could do, and it was amazing to do. And I still like Procter & Gamble, but Procter & Gamble is not going to solve the problem of the world. if you look in my logic, I also have a law degree from Ohio State, and right now the major corporations in the world are legally required to increase their profits on a month-to-month, quarter-by-quarter basis. The way they're achieving those profits is by improving productivity, which translates into we do more work with less people. At the end of the day, the markets are so competitive that they can't get more demand, so what they do is they cut costs. Let me give you just a couple of quick solutions that are real fun. Modern technology is fairly simple and fairly contained and affordable. You can take proven technologies, and we're talking about it in the UAE, proven technologies that can be then connected to companies created in third world developing areas, and they can move out and sell water cleaning technologies, they can sell service and support, sanitation. Big item right now is urban gardening. So there's all kinds of way of growing food within on a small community, and it's interesting that community is identical to every other small community. Massive amounts of empty real estate, empty lots, poverty, school systems are going nowhere, people are going nowhere, and they're right on the border of really high volume violence. It's not that hard to flip the switch and leverage innovation, creativity, and start things working even at a junior high level. So a couple of other things. Somebody mentioned here earlier, biggest force in the world today for the 174 poorest countries is essentially economic collaboration. One of the reasons small businesses don't work in small countries is there's not enough demand to keep the company alive. So in conclusion, and I could go on and talk because this is my life right now, for all of you in this room, I can't encourage you enough. There are so many great free education opportunities from Yale and Harvard and MIT. You can go out and I challenge you, because think about what you would do if you lost the job you have right now. What would you do to become employed tomorrow? And sadly, it was who would hire me rather than what do I want to do with my life. And so 20 years ago, I decided what I wanted to do with my life, and that's what I'm doing. But meaningful job, livable wage, participation in the creation of wealth and economics. That's the economy of the future. That's it.
Next, we'll hear from Dr. Sergei Trostiansky.
Thank you, Anna, and thanks to all who came this afternoon to this book presentation event. So I would like to, of course, thank Father Kuriakose. I've known him for quite a long time, and we've shared the same intellectual space at Columbia University Union Theological Seminary, and we've shared the same worshiping space, Lampman Chapel at Union Seminary, right? So, and he's an Eastern Christian priest, and so am I, and I guess we have a lot in common, so thank you, Father Kuriakose. It's always a great pleasure to collaborate with you, and I hope this is not our only project. There's going to be many things yet to come. A few years back, yes, Father Kuriakose asked me if I would like to make a contribution to this volume, and I figured, well, why not? I mean, what should I say? So my chapter was mainly on kind of, I should say historical. In some ways, the thought is clearly obsolete, right? No one will follow Aristotle in constructing some sort of foundational economic theory this day and age. But on the other hand, there's a lot of wisdom there. There's a lot of kind of very good and very subtle points that they've made that still kind of relate well and sort of address well our modern contemporary issues. So, and I've approached the subject from the standpoint of, like, you know, what does economy mean? What is the sphere of its application? What is its impact on human fate, you know, in general, right? So, and indeed, you know, if we go as far back as to the 4th, 5th century AD, we see that people did not understand economics in the same way we do this day and age, right? So economy is basically about ecos, so is ecology, right? It's about our common house or household, so of which we have to be taking a good care, and if we do not, things go just in disarray. But nevertheless, I mean, I think the Church Fathers had a more inclusive, more global understanding of economics, because they thought of it not as narrow as, let's say, Aristotle or modern scholars, what Aristotle used to call economiki, with a limited sphere of application that concerns household management or housecraft management, right? For the Fathers, it was a more global project that concerned our common ecos, which is the whole globe, right? And not just in this life, but also in afterlife. So it concerned this loving care of God for the entire humanity, and therefore it concerns the issues of creation, redemption, salvation, afterlife, etc., etc. So this is a very interesting subject matter, very subtle, very complex. You know, I've tried to kind of approach it from some different angles to highlight some major issues. You know, of course, talk about a lot about economic justice, about justice in general, in a sense of, you know, both distributive justice and corrective justice, and given this definition of justice, of that which is legal and that which is equitable, and trying to exhibit the main features of economic justice, which is equitable, right? Nevertheless, I mean, this is just I guess, our first communal effort to approach the subject matter, but there's a lot more at stake. I very much sympathize with Bruce's approach that, you know, here's the bottom line, and the bottom line is that you have to have a job, you know, you have to have a job in order to provide yourself and your family with some kind of subsistent you know, existence, at least at the minimum kind of subsistence level, right? If you lose it, then, you know, everything fades away, and you're kind of like completely deprived of all basic human features, of human dignity, of human purpose, I guess. In any case, I see this project as valuable. I see that it might have a good reception, so which I guess, you know, for any scholarly book, it takes decades until people read, study, and sort of consciously reflect on the subject matter. But there's something that also is urgent about it, because our common ecos is kind of gradually deteriorating. It's been deteriorating, like, you know, quite rapidly in the 20th century, but now it's increased its speed, you know, exponentially. So, you know, we have to do something about it. In this case, this book presentation also interestingly coincides with our annual conference. The subject of this particular conference is creation, redemption, and environmental ethics. So we approach the same issue of economy from a more global soteriological perspective. So you're all welcome to join us on Friday. It's a day event which will start at 8 o'clock and be running until 7 p.m. So, and again, thank you to all presenters. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the Kuriakose. And I would like to pass the mic back to Anna.
Thank you, Dr. T. Finally, we will hear from Mr. Kashif Sheikh.
I'm the Assistant General Manager of Arab Gulf Pearl Trading, and it's a 40-year-old family business that's based out of the Middle East. We specialize in technology identification, marketing, and distribution of services and products. And of course, I'm here to give the SME's perspective on how we can contribute towards counterterrorism. Initially, we started with project supplies. Today, we work with international companies with proven technology solutions to address various problems. One of which is a Swiss company called On-Site HV Solutions. They have technology that helps carry out condition assessment of power cables in electrical utilities. This, however, is a very specific and specialized equipment, and so to help the utilities build skill set, we offer training to the employees to be able to enable them and empower them to be able to use the equipment and protect the company's assets. Now, this is a European technology, but its impact can be even global because it addresses a lot of issues globally. Similarly, there are a lot of local technologies developed across the world which can or have the potential for global impact. And that's why we are looking at working with Generation Seeds to set up a regional headquarters in the UAE. Of course, the UAE is highly accessible, multicultural environment. The government has various initiatives in support of entrepreneurship and skill development. However, we don't, with only government initiatives, it doesn't work out. We, as Bruce has mentioned, that bottom-up development is what we should be looking at, and that's where private sector like us can come in. We play a role. We have a joint venture company called Al Jazeera International Catering, which supplies food to labor camps. And over here, as part of the employee empowerment program, we are able to train non-technical background employees and to become industrial kitchen chefs. Of course, then this is a very small portion of what we do, and the impact isn't significant on the social or economic impact is quite limited. And so here's where we have a need for collaboration between governments and small businesses to have a major impact. In fact, as you mentioned about the neighboring countries, of course, market definition should be, it should allow for efforts to be beyond just the borders, like in the Gulf Cooperative Council, where we're able to set up marketing offices across the region. This could give a lot of opportunity for young individuals or fresh graduates to gain some skill sets in real-life skill sets. And I guess this is where we see working together with Generation Seeds, we'll be able to provide various opportunities and help individuals develop skills. And we look forward to providing a lot of efforts and providing a better situation or working together to improve things in the region over there.
Thank you so much to all of the panelists for your time, your thoughts, your contributions. At this point, the floor is open for any questions that any of the guests have, any of the panelists have.
I'm Thomas Abraham, very pleased to be here in this session I see technology too, because I'm a technologist, I'm a material scientist, specialized in nanotechnology, and do market research on new technologies. I just want to mention about your alternative technology. Solar is already taken off. With this current oil prices, India is going to compete much better, and there are huge plans for solar. So solar will have a big impact in India because oil import is very expensive for India. So with the current oil prices, it will go up very high. And solar will have a dominant role in the energy needs of China and India. Now coming back to Bruce. Just want to mention about my own background. I'm a technologist, but my real involvement has been more building so many institutions in the New York area. But what I'm looking at is, see, to have such a setup to bring countries together or states together, I mean, a setup from the UN would have been an appropriate one, but the UN things are all failed, whether it is UNDP or anything, any other segment. Now we as a group of individuals who have come together on a global platform, because the technology has made it easy for us to be connected. 30 million people, just consider it's a country of 30 million people living outside India. We are bigger than many European countries. Our total economic output is much bigger, and we are coming to the state where we as a group can help, and that's what we are trying to look at, in the sense that, let it be a private initiative. Let's forget about UN. But in the other sense, I would also like to say that I'm also a member of the American Society of Engineers of India. I think the greed is no more a thing for them, because they are all established very well. In the sense that, at this stage of life where they have established so well, they don't want to get any more money. No. Basically what you can contribute, and that is where I'm looking how to trigger that opportunity for people to get motivated to do a larger things of global development. Whether it is Clean India or Clean Ganges or any other thing, sanitation, clean water, using nanotechnology to improve upon the take of the arsenic out of Bangladesh water, all these kind of things. We have a group of people available, but I'm trying to see how to build up that setup so that it can grow on an ongoing basis. And we are working on it within our own organization to see how to motivate and how to build up that setup.
This is the first time I'm actually sitting in a forum like this, so my questions or my remarks may not be that appropriate. But probably it will be covered in the next book of Father Kuriakose. It's basically about technology. Technology itself, what would happen, I mean, they say that by 2035 there would be technological singularity. It means that the computer power would be as much or better than the human. As we can see that, or we can forecast that lot of jobs would be gone, like as the outsourcing out actually taken away a lot of jobs here. And in the whole world itself, a lot of the traditional jobs will be gone. Actually, all these solutions we have, or we talked about here, talking about the current situation. Probably this time we started talking about, or thinking about what would happen in the next 20 years because of the technological singularity, where how do we find employment for all these people who, meaningful employment for all these people whose jobs would be wiped away because of the technology or automation.
My name is Jordi Abraham. I was the Chief Technology Officer for the United Nations Pension Fund. I worked for UN for 36 years, I retired. Yeah, this is one of the challenges we see around. When you talk about Trump's election, I agree with you. It was more about jobs than about all the other extraneous factors. Because in places like Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and all that, what you have seen is really nothing but closed factories, unemployment, and distress all over. So the point is that at least some of the commentators are making here is that whether it is Brexit or Trump's election or what is happening in Germany today or Austrian election, these all kind of indicate to the fact that these power centers, whether it's Brussels, Washington, whatever, it's kind of detached from the real situation of the people. It looks like the decisions are really made without the proper input, okay, into these bureaucrats, or I myself as an international civil servant, we really could have a perspective sitting far away, which many times work against the best interest of the people, especially you're trying to serve. So the Western world is definitely facing some tremendous challenges. That is, of course, how we really going to be competitive, because the jobs, the factories cannot be profitably run here because the multinationals are really looking for the bottom line, and countries like India definitely looking for opportunities, in terms of getting business from elsewhere, and of course between 19 and 29 age olds, we have about 30% unemployed. So it looks like it's a challenging situation where this issue comes to, the technology. Like look at McDonald's. The moment all the advocates thought that, okay, we can really make the McDonald's employees' life a little better by providing a $15 minimum wage, here it goes, all of a sudden you have kiosks.
Right.
Okay,
they take the 15 and put it in the new.
Right, exactly. So the increasing population, okay, and of course chaos around the world, this whole increasing automation. I think it's really proving to be a great challenge for all of us.
Let me give you an example that came right out of India, though. So we had a water purification functionality that could deliver up to 40,000 liters of drinkable water in a day. So when we looked at it in India, what the situation wasn't the water, it was how do you get that water now to all the people who walk 30 miles to the local well to get their water now? What if you employed people and gave them pedal carts, put the water on the pedal carts and had them deliver the water? So now you've got a different set of circumstances where the water doesn't cost you much, but the water to the people becomes a major change in their lives. That is not a big deal in the United States. That's a damn big deal in India, because I've sat and watched people walking along with their buckets headed for the well. And so it's those little subtle next movements off of the technology that really deliver the bottom line impact.
Thank you so much for your attendance and participation. I'd just like to take a moment to thank certain people in particular on behalf of everyone who worked on this project. First, Ms. Yamina Jakka and Ms. Yvonne Lodico from the Grace Initiative. Secondly, Dr. George Matthew from the Institute of Social Services, and above all, Mr. Massimo Tomasoli and Kieran from the International IDEA Office as well, for all of their hard work and support. So can we give them all a hand? And I'd also like to extend our gratitude to all of the panelists for your participation and your time in the release of this book discussion. And finally, thank you so much to Father Kuriakose for being the reason behind it.